the stick and see if it's strong enough to drive across.
Is hydrogen available, like hydrogen fuel cells? Is it available?
That's a good question. I don't know. So if you had more power, right now I think they do it mostly, it's all diesel.
They're hauling diesel.
Yeah. So, but yeah, it's a good question as to whether or not you could get more power for a hydrogen fuel cell.
What about a long articulated snake, like a kind of a train,
Yeah.
which has got tapered lightweight ends and it senses if there's any sinking?
Yeah.
I mean, you don't want to come at a crevasse, you know, length on, because the whole thing's going to drop in.
Yeah. But I mean, that's
or
the kind of
a big ball rolling.
Yeah, that kind of idea, I mean, that kind of out of the box thinking, I think is really would be very. I think that would be really interesting to present or develop. When we were in Wellington, we heard from some ideas from some of the movie people, and I don't think they really appreciate what Antarctic conditions are like. But whatever they propose, it'd be great movies in terms of.
Well, I was thinking of that movie Dune.
Yeah.
Those giant,
the giant worms. Yeah. So yeah, hold on to that idea. But just remember that yeah, conditions get it pretty extreme there. And I think yeah. So I think that's it. So yeah, I encourage you to develop those kind of thinking about just the finding any kind of way that you're sensing what's happening with what's happening in front of you, and not only does it work, are we interested in these kind of vehicles, human vehicles, but also just generally robotic vehicles. Can we send a robot out 20 kilometers to change a sensor part or something like that? So, yeah.
What do you think the current limitations are with the satellite imagery right now?
The current limitations?
Yeah.
Yeah, it's. I think the European Space Agency Sentinel-1A has got a 6-day coverage cycle, and some of the other a lot of the satellites that are designed, it's almost like they're at a slight angle, so they don't actually cover all the parts of Antarctica that you'd be interested in, because they don't realize that that's actually a market. And so it's a so I think part of it is frequency and a big part of it is resolution on the ground, and then also just ease of access, rather than having national agreements or something to use data, having, I think ESA makes a big effort to share their data, and the Canadians also have good data. But as far as I know, nobody has looked at, IC, this Finnish company just launched their satellite last month, and they've just started to get radar data. But it's a real interesting problem that trying to, even if you get a good snapshot, it's the ice is moving, and so you really have to know that this was taken either a week ago or 3 months ago, because that crevasse will have moved.
Yeah, how big are the biggest crevasses?
Well, there are some that are actually it's real typical that it's like the size of this
5 meters, 10 meters.
Yeah, 5 meters, something like that.
So if you could design something that would go across them, perpendicular wise.
Yeah.
That could cross them.
Then you wouldn't worry so much about these things, right?
Well, you wouldn't have to stop it. You'd have a lot of advantage.
Yeah. And so that's why I mean the dog sleds were very good about crossing over these things without without punching through.
Because of the weight.
Yeah, yeah. But as soon as you got heavier vehicles,
Well, the snake would go across.
yeah, you ought to pursue that.
What's the story with the poke it with a stick step in the process?
Yeah,
Do they always
yeah,
have
so
to do that just to sort of double check, or?
Well, there's if the snow bridge is thick enough and strong enough, you can actually drive across it, and so they
The
really
ground penetrating radar doesn't give you enough information to.
yeah it's sort of like they need to they may know that there's a dangerous drop, but they need to also sort of map the extent as to whether or not, you know, it. I don't know. I have to ask Dan more about exactly when they decide they can drive across something and when they have to avoid completely.
You'd always want to double check to make sure your instruments, you know, haven't misread, because the price if you get it wrong is huge.
Yeah, that's right. Yeah. And you notice every time he's out of the vehicle, he's roped up, and so he's, yeah.
On the image that you showed that Dan was crossing, there was something like a darker area which was very large.
Yeah.
What was that like? Is that a gigantic crevasse?
Actually, this blue line is the land line. This is
okay.
pure ice over seawater.
Yeah.
And this is ice over land.
And so
yeah, there is a.
So the land is problematic.
Yeah, going over land, it's sort of like rolling over a bump, and the bump causes the crevasses, and so a lot of these things are like in this transition region.
As the ice is pushing downwards, then they have these look like waves.
The
Wave
peninsulas of
reflection.
the land create the crevasses.
Yeah, that's one way. There's crevasses apparently can be created. Where to go? Here we are. Okay, so you have certain crevasses created by a transition like that, and they can persist quite a ways. And then there are other ones that are like here's ones that are backing up because they're bumping into this island out here, I mean, of rock underneath the ice. And then when it gets close to the it starts to split off as it calves icebergs off the edge.
It's a bit like skin wrinkling on an elephant around bony structures.
Yeah, something like that. Yeah, and I don't have it brought up here, but there was an animation of over like 18 months of you can see the crevasses just moving. It's sort of like looks like it's living. So it's it is real interesting that, you know, they may have really good data from a year ago, and it doesn't help them at all because it's all the crevasses have moved. Yeah.
Yeah, so there aren't many folks in the private space working on space or the Antarctic. So a lot of the coding criteria seem to get toward established solutions or research.
I'm sorry, I didn't hear that last part.
So the judging criteria, they're leaning towards established solutions versus ideas we start coming up with now.
Oh,
There's a slight description.
well, we're giving the judges a lot of flexibility in this, and so it's in the panel they get to decide whether or not they think a solution is innovative, you know, very different, and might be a new breakthrough versus a slight improvement over something that's already been done. And so, yeah, so they're
yeah, it can be both either a disruptive innovation or a what's the other?
in evolution of the ideas, yeah. And things like, you know, for example, you know, I think they need desperate help and in just their human factors, you know, them sitting out in the, it's like, I just can't imagine the combination of boredom and terror of, you know, watching the screen. If you see a vertical line, you've got a few seconds to react. And so that's, I think that's a natural progression of improve the human factors of how they do things right away. But if you're driving robot snakes across the Arctic, that's Antarctic. That's a really very different concept. I think the judges may really like that idea.
I'm probably giving away the best idea yet.
You can apply individually. You can apply. You can join a team. You can form a team. You can.
This whole room's going to run away.
That's right. We didn't expect 60 robot snake solutions.
I give away all my good stuff.
Any other
question?
Yeah.
Maybe a bit of a stupid question, but would you recommend that we constrain ourselves to the size of the vehicles that we currently run to travel to the Antarctic, or can we modify that size?
I think you can modify that size. I think those reports that we have links to about what the science needs, they really need a lot more site visits, and some people want lots of heavy equipment at these sites, and other people say I don't need a bunch of heavy equipment there, but I need 50 different locations, and so it's.
And then maybe to add to that as well, it's like there are scientists who say that you could completely take out the human factor. Like if they can get the science and the information either autonomously, robotically, then that's the that's the best solution. So
yeah, one group we talked to that's doing sea ice drilling they were really jealous that someone, I think in the U.S. program, thought it was possible to just discard $100,000 drills, toss them off the ship, and they said we can't afford to do that. We need to go out individually and set up our equipment and get it back. And so yeah, it's just being more cost effective in doing a lot of these different sites.
Are all these potential new sites for research marked out?
That's a good question. I don't have a map for. No, that's something we'll have to look for to see.
We'll have to ask.
Yeah, because oftentimes they're doing these things that are constrained by their current technology, but then they have desires for other sites. Like one up here near the base, they do a lot of activity about 10 kilometers out, but that's only this little tiny spot. So, but we think that this kind of thing applies to there's groups that are just now looking at traverses near the lunar North Pole and South Pole, and that all sorts of challenges trying to stay within, able to communicate to the Earth, the sun rotating around every month, deep crater pockets that are at temperatures that have not been experienced by any rover, and so and that's where. For example, United Launch Alliance, Lockheed and Boeing are investing billions of dollars. Thinks that they're going to need 1,000 people working just for the extracting hydrogen and oxygen for the rocket fuel in 30 years. And so this is, I think, we're on the verge of something, of big things taking off. And so we just want to make sure that all of you have a chance to be involved if you want to be.
We'll end there. So thank you very much for staying, and we'll hang out for a bit if you have any other questions. And actually, one question is there anybody here already who's thinking of applying? Awesome.
Oh, cool.
Nice.
I wasn't until I heard the snake idea.
It's a bit wacky.
That's great.
Very interesting
Very cool.
Thank you very much.
Yeah, thank you so
All
much.
right.